I cannot believe we are already into week 13 of fantasy football. Regardless of what your record is sitting at, there are some legitimate league-shattering players sitting on your waiver wire this week, and I do not say that lightly, that you need to pick up as soon as possible that will help you win a fantasy football championship. We'll start with the priority list as always. Jacoby Brissett is going to be number one, rostered in about 50% of leagues, depending on what site you use, but he has been averaging over 20 fantasy points a game since filling in for Kyler Murray. An amazing start, an amazing play every single week. Even without Marvin Harrison Jr., he's doing amazing. Faisal Tuden is also a top add as well. We know if Travis Etienne were to ever go down, he is going to be a top workhorse running back. He's also getting a good amount of usage behind him while they are both playing. Red zone usage, third downs, pass catching. He's going to be great, as well as Tyler Algier. This is the time of season where you need to start adding your backup handcuff running backs just in case, because you don't want your main guy to get injured and lose your league because of it. But the top waiver wire ad for this week, not even a speculative running back, is going to be Devin Neal. Probably the most urgent of the video, with Alvin Kamara coming down with his knee injury from the first half of last week. He got ruled out very, very quickly from that game. It does not look great. He's getting an MRI today. Again, all of the updates on that will be coming on this channel. I'll give you guys everything you need to know. Make sure to follow this page if you aren't already, and like the video if you do appreciate this type of waiver video. I will be doing them every single week on top of 6 other ones throughout the week too. Again, it would help me so much as a creator if you hit that like button, but again, it would help Devin Neal if we don't have Alvin Kamara in this week 13 matchup against the Dolphins, which we more than likely will not have. I would say there's a 99.99% chance that he doesn't play, and we know it's an insanely positive matchup. The Dolphins are top 5 in fantasy points allowed to running backs this year. Efficiency, yards per carry, receptions, like it's just all inclusive and all possible. And it's not like Alvin Kamara has been dominant so far this year. Like, he can lose this job. He was losing it to Kendrick Miller before he went on IR. He's even losing those snaps now to Devin Neal. So what did he do in that entire second half of the game when there was no Alvin Kamara? Well, the Saints had him as a workhorse every single down running back because they quite literally have 0 other options except Taysom Hill, I guess you could say. Kendrick Miller again on IR. He saw 100% of the total touches out of the running back position, running 37 routes. For people that don't understand how crazy that is, that was more routes last week than CeeDee Lamb ran, than JSN ran, than Wan'Dale Robinson ran. Like, the list goes on. It is absolutely insane, which led him to finish with 5 receptions on his 7 total targets for 43 yards, a handful of rushing attempts there as well. But really what is important is this pass catching usage and the fact that he is a workhorse running back. Now, Devin Neal hasn't necessarily been amazing. Like, he's not a breakout guy that's going to be an amazing top 5 running back, but he's still a top waiver wire ad, again, because there's no other options. And the way that the team uses him in fantasy football terms, it's very, very good. And they have a really positive rest of season schedule as well. Miami this week, then the Buccaneers, Panthers, and Jets and Titans to finish out the rest of the season. It's one of the best playoff schedules. I posted an entire video going over all the best and worst playoff schedules for every position. I'll pin it in the description if you guys want to check it out. But Andre Yoshivas as well, there's a ton of injuries this week and a ton of loopholes we can take advantage of. He is one of them. The inevitable of T. Higgins getting injured has just happened again. He's back to it, suffering a concussion in the fourth quarter last week versus the Patriots. There is, again, a 99.99% chance he doesn't play this week on Thanksgiving Day. It's a Thursday. It's a short week for them against the Ravens. Probably not going to play considering he does have a concussion as well. You got to go through the entire protocol, which they've made so much more difficult to come out of. But by the way, that Thanksgiving game is on my birthday. So if you guys haven't hit that like button yet, please consider doing that for the love of me and the love of the channel, just out of the kindness of your heart. But again, Jamar Chase also going to be coming back from his suspension, so taking the place of T. Higgins. They're kind of swapping in and out. But over the last 3 seasons, we've seen in the 6 games that they have played when Higgins is out, those 6 games, he has 5 total touchdowns. And in the 7 games that he's played, where he's seen 7 or more targets, aka a starting wide receiver, averaging 15 fantasy points per game, Andre Yoshivas is. So that's a really good situation that we're coming into this week against a Ravens defense that is very, very positive to wide receivers and allowing fantasy points. And so far this year, he has been the primary slot wide receiver for the Bengals. Now, they run a lot of 2 wide receiver sets. That's the reason he's not on the field, because he comes off and you have a Jamar Chase and a T. Higgins. But the reason that matters is because the Ravens are especially susceptible to fantasy points out of the slot wide receiver role. They're top 10 in fantasy points to that position and that area of the field as well. So a wide receiver 2 in a positive matchup, and most likely getting Joe Burrow back, it's all a great situation for him. He's a start for week 13, but outside of those top 2, the waiver ads start getting a little bit more surgical, and this is where we really get our value, and the value from this channel is going to be guys like John Mechie and AD Mitchell. I will say both of them are becoming top waiver wire ads right now with the direction that the Jets are going, but it's still a bit of a gamble on which one you're going to want to get, so I'll break it down completely for you. Last week versus the Ravens, John Mechie was the wide receiver 1, just barely over AD Mitchell. He ran 31 routes to his 29. Those guys were still running 100% of the routes and all of the time on field in 2 wide receiver sets. So they're clearing away the top guys. And they're using Mechie as the Z wide receiver, and they're using Mitchell as the X. Now, Mechie saw 7, Mitchell saw 7 targets. It was pretty even there. The only difference is that John Mechie actually does catch a majority of his passes. We talked about this in previous weeks when we were going over AD Mitchell too. You can see that when you look at the 2 lines comparatively next to each other from last week. Mechie has been the more targeted wide receiver in the red zone as well, just slightly. So there are a couple signs that point towards him being the wide receiver 1 and the primary guy you want to be getting until Garrett Wilson does come back. He's slated to return in week 16. But if I'm being honest and I was Garrett Wilson, I am not rushing myself back into this Jets offense that is nowhere near the playoffs, not playing for anything, and there's just no point. So that's just my 2 cents of it. But again, you have Tyrod Taylor, who is playing better than Justin Fields. I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but his pass volume is pretty decent. He had completed 17 of his 28 total passes, 222 yards and a touchdown. Again, it's not going to be like Joe Flacco fill-in great pass volume, but it's better than Justin Fields pretty easily, and more volume days are coming from what he saw last week. And they do get a tougher matchup this week against the Atlanta Falcons defense, but they get the Dolphins and the Jaguars after that, who are both top 7 matchups in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. And another consensus top waiver ad this week is Jaden Higgins, but there are some underlying numbers here that suggest maybe that role isn't as promised as we think, so we should probably slow down a little bit, but I'll go over all of that in more detail in a later video this week. So again, make sure you are subscribed to have your post notifications on, and while you do that, you can go check for Dylan Sampson, who is another top waiver ad for this week, becoming a legit guy. Quinshon Judkins' health is something we can closely monitor just a little bit. Like, it's not necessarily in question, but he did take multiple trips to the Blue Medical Tent in the 4th quarter last week. Now, it's not like it's going to be anything serious. It really is not slated to be, if anything at all. But just to note, it kind of highlights the fact that Dylan Sampson does have potential. Like, he has consistently been running more routes out of the backfield than Quinshon Judkins has. And you look at the usage splits between the two. Judkins, of course, is this RB1. He's leading in total carries, but he's not a complete workhorse because Dylan Sampson does get a lot of usage in 3rd downs and receiving downs as well. So he saw his highest snap total of the year last week when Judkins was healthy and the Browns actually did control pace. Those were 2 positive things, I guess you could say. And the 49ers defense coming into week 13 is a very, very positive one. They are not very healthy. So we're not necessarily going to be starting Dylan Sampson unless, again, for whatever reason, Quinshon Judkins is injured, which I don't think it really is going to be anything. But again, he is an immediate backup and a great running back if that were to ever happen. And he would get a ton of touches, a ton of checkdowns, and a very favorable rest of season for fantasy points allowed to running backs. Again, I posted a full video of all the wide receiver, running back, quarterback rankings of the fantasy playoff schedules as well. But Chimere DK is another ad for this week. People do have some things wrong about him, which we will be aware of. The 21.4 fantasy points looks great. It was absolutely amazing. Some of it was help from the special teams touchdown he did get. That involvement is there. We can't expect it every week to get a touchdown. But he did lead this team in targets with 7, catching 5 of them for 44 yards and a nice touchdown. That wasn't a special teams touchdown on top of that. So he also did run the most routes out of all of these wide receivers at 46. He's the clear and away wide receiver 1. That won't really change for the rest of the season, which is a positive because Calvin Ridley is out for the rest of the year. All that makes him a great waiver ad. He is playing as this number 1, even when Alec Iomanor is healthy. He was out last week, so that's not a variable we really need to worry about. But what should worry you about DK is the entire team situation. There's a very real chance that they do not ever come close to scoring the amount of points they did last week or generating that much offense ever again, which in turn would cause these wide receivers to run less routes because of it and have lower touchdown upside. Ward did have his 3rd highest yard total last week compared to his entire season and passing attempts thrown as well. So again, a lot of season highs that we saw from them, but the fact that they competed against a very good Seahawks team and defense is somewhat of a positive sign. I'm not necessarily buying into the Cam Ward breakout turnaround season kind of thing, but they get some great matchups. They have the Jaguars defense in week 13, who are top 10 in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. Again, he'll be a very risky play season long, but in a short, deeper league kind of situation, he can definitely be added for the upside. But a tight end making himself a amazing ad right here is Brenton Strange, who I've had in videos before, But in his first game coming off of IR since week 5, he didn't even get worked into a full snap share, a full workload, but he caught 5 targets, all of his 5 targets for 93 yards, 14.3 fantasy points. That's good for top 5 on the week. Everybody is worried about the target competition here. That's what everyone's going to tell you. Brian Thomas Jr. when he comes back, Jacoby Myers, even Parker Washington now. But is that really even competition? Like, everybody's complaining about Brian Thomas Jr. getting his targets and being injured and not doing anything. But outside of that, tight ends aren't as much affected of wide receivers. But we see through weeks 1 through 4 when those guys were healthy. Again, they didn't have Jacoby Myers, but in weeks 1 through 4, he was averaging just under 6 targets per game, running 100% of the routes at the tight end position. A decent schedule to finish the rest of the year as well. If you need a tight end, he is a great option that is out there for you, as well as Trevor Lawrence. If you need a plug and play quarterback, he gets his against the Tennessee Titans this week, which we know how positive that is. We talk about it every single week. I don't need to go too much into it, but I do have a few potential league-winning ads depending on some big injuries that we will get more information on as the days go by. So again, make sure you're subscribed, put your notifications on, because I will drop more information in the stash video coming in a few days. You'll be mad that you missed that video if you do. But I also have a list of potential week-winning defenses we can go through in this video here to pick up, plug and play, and start. The Jaguars, speaking of them, are definitely on this list. They are a top, probably the #1 defense to pick up and stream, getting the Tennessee Titans. They are top 3 in fantasy points allowed to opposing defenses, and this defense has been cooking over the last few weeks. I mean, they dropped 8 on the Cardinals, 12 on the Chargers, 11 on the Texans. They have a great run defense. They should be able to take pace, control the game, keep it low scoring for the Titans, and also generate some interceptions and sacks. But the Rams are also another really good option here, getting the Panthers defense. It doesn't matter how Bryce Young plays on Monday night. The reality here is they held the Bucs to 7 points. They dropped 18 on them. They're averaging 11.25 fantasy points since their bye in week 8. You can also go through and get the Chargers coming out of their bye this week into a matchup against the Raiders, which we know how many issues they're dealing with now, and they also just got rid of their offensive coordinator. Great situation. Also, that is going to finish out this video, guys. Thank you so much for hopping in here. I will hit you with a banger of a video tomorrow, so make sure to be around for that. All glory to the man above.